Did you ever get to play Pokémon Stadium 1 and 2 on the Nintendo 64? Well, if you didn't, I feel like you missed out, because in my opinion, those were the best Stadium games. Pokémon Stadium 1 and 2 allowed you to take your Pokémon from the Game Boy games, you know, just the pixel art back in the day, and bring them into full-on 3D. But not only were they in 3D, they were very well animated. There was an announcer announcing the fights, and they were in these big stadiums with audiences, and it was a very epic kind of thing. And it was something I really loved because it really built the narrative of competition and tournaments in Pokémon games, and that's just something I totally enjoyed. So, that brings me to Pokémon Sword and Shield. I'm sure you guys have noticed, well, maybe at least some of you have noticed, that there seem to be stadiums in the game. The gyms seem to be giant sporting event-like stadiums. When we look at the trailer, we see even a giant audience in the background as Lucario is fighting Tyranitar. And I think this is a big deal, guys. I don't just think this is, you know, just for show. I think there's something more to it than just that. So here's the thing. In previous Pokemon games, when you look at the Japanese logos, there's usually some sort of hint to some sort of big mechanic in the game. For Pokemon X and Y, the logos had a reference to Mega Evolution. For Pokemon Sun and Moon, the logos had a reference to Z moves. And for Pokemon Sword and Shield, we have that circular red and blue thing with the little white swirls on it. We're seeing this symbol on every single stadium. We even see it when the trainer is walking into the stadium with the spotlights and he's wearing kind of like soccer looking kind of clothing. This symbol seems to be everywhere there is some sort of stadium battle. And that is really interesting. It seems to suggest that there's something more to these stadium battles than just your typical gym battle. I think the obvious things is that the stadiums are bigger, they're huge, there are giant audiences, and it does remind you of Pokemon Stadium. I'm even kind of hoping that we can maybe even have an announcer. In Pokemon Stadium we had an announcer, and I thought that was something that made it really, really cool. Maybe it could be something optional that you could turn off if you don't like it, but for me, it could be something really cool to see, especially if they're really building up these gym battles or stadium battles to be more of a spectacle. But there's another interesting little wrinkle here. So Nintendo, not too long ago, tweeted out about Pokemon Sword and Shield talking about the gyms, these giant stadiums, and they referred to the gym leaders as gym masters. Not gym leaders, gym masters. It's a different naming. Why? Well, the tweet was then quickly deleted, and there was no follow-up tweet to correct that previous tweet. So that has led many to believe that this was a leak, that somehow the Nintendo Twitter page released information that was not supposed to be released yet. It was a slip-up. So if this is really the case, what could that mean? What could Gym Masters actually mean for these stadium battles? Well, I have a theory that Game Freak is really trying to incorporate some of that stadium-like spectacle to Pokemon Sword and Shield. Now, why would they do that? Well, Pokemon Sword and Shield is the first new generation mainline Pokemon game to be on a home console, the Nintendo Switch. And historically speaking, the mainline games have been on the handhelds, while the stadium games have been on the home console. But now, the Switch is both. So we're getting both in one game. Now, does that mean we're going to get a whole bunch of mini games and a whole bunch of multiplayer features like we've gotten for previous stadium games? I don't know about that, but they might include some elements like these giant stadium fights. Maybe they will offer some sort of local multiplayer in Pokemon Sword and Shield. I think that kind of makes sense because this game is going to be on the Nintendo Switch, a local multiplayer kind of console. So maybe they will include some sort of local multiplayer battle mode in the game where you can just use the library of Pokemon you've already collected. You know, basically kind of like the rentals we saw in Pokemon Stadium, except instead of rentals, it's Pokemon you've already caught. Or heck, maybe they could go the extra mile and offer rentals. That would be appreciated as well. I think this is a legitimate possibility because Game Freak does seem to want to take advantage of the system, and one of the features of the system is local multiplayer. They did it with Let's Go with the co-op play. For Sword and Shield, I wouldn't be surprised if they did something like this. But going back to the Gym Masters there, because I never really got to finish my point with that, I'm not entirely sure what they would mean. But when I think about the structure for Pokemon Stadium, when you would go through these different challenges and fight the different trainers, it was a series of battles. So maybe these stadium battles are going to be a series of battles as well. Maybe there will be more of a tournament-like structure, adding to this idea that it's a big sporting event where a whole bunch of people are coming in to watch the best trainers in the world to fight. That would be kind of interesting to see, and it could potentially tell us why we're seeing the trainer wear that jersey. Maybe the trainer is wearing a jersey because he has a particular affiliation to a certain team or faction, and maybe he has to battle throughout these different stadiums and get to the Gym Master. That could be the case. maybe. I'm kind of speculating here, but I do think there's something really big going on here. The fact that this symbol is referencing all of these stadiums, the fact that this logo is a part of the Japanese logos, which if you look at previous Pokemon games suggests that this is going to be some sort of main feature for the game, I think it makes a lot of sense. But let's look at this from another angle here. So, some of you may have heard about the rumors about Armor Evolution. Well, assuming Armor Evolution is true, that might kind of make sense with these sort of stadium-like battles we could be seeing. So think about this. The games are called Pokemon Sword and Shield. They're giant stadiums, giant coliseums, and if Pokemon are going to be getting Armor Evolution, doesn't that feel very Coliseum-like, very Roman battle-like? Sword, Shield, Armor Evolution, giant stadiums, giant crowds cheering you on? That makes a lot of sense to me, and it kind of all connects together. Now, if you don't believe Armor Evolution, I'm not going to try and convince you here. I have another video about that if you want to check that one out. But I will point out this one little detail that I think is really interesting. In one of the shots that we got to see of the lab in the trailer, if you zoom in towards the right, we get to see a diagram of a Charizard head next to some machinery. That might lend some more credence to this idea of armor or mecha evolution. There could be some legitimate armor enhancements given to some Pokemon for these epic stadium battles. So what am I thinking here? I'm thinking that there's definitely going to be something to these stadium battles that is more than the normal sort of thing. They're going to be changing things around in a way that's going to be really interesting, and it's going to be the big gimmick of the game. It lends some credence to the Armor Evolution rumor. It kind of makes sense with this whole premise of Sword and Shield and giant stadiums. And with these giant stadiums, I do think Game Freak may be sort of trying to incorporate the stadium-like philosophy as well with these giant stadiums, these giant crowds. Maybe an announcer really hype things up and make it feel more of like an epic tournament. I would really appreciate that. And that may also even suggest that they may offer some local multiplayer battles, kind of like what we got to see in the old stadium games as well. Maybe. So these are all things I would like to see, but this is my speculation. What do you guys think? What have you guys noticed from the footage of the stadiums and this little logo here? Do you think it means something else, or am I kind of on the right track here? Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I'm really curious what you guys have to say. If you're new here and you love Nintendo content, please subscribe here with AndresRestart, and leaving a like would also be greatly appreciated. Anyways, everyone, thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Bye.